Okay, here we go. Tell me when and why your family first came here from South Africa.
I came to Dallas in March 1979 to meet with a cousin of mine who had moved here to live, and I was asking questions and he said to me, "Come and have a look," which is what I did. And I liked the place. I was here for about a week, 10 days, and then I moved on across the United States. And over the years, what transpired was my sister and brother-in-law were to go to St. Louis, Missouri, and they weren't happy about about being there. And I suggested that they come down and see the same cousin here in Dallas. They'd like it, and they'd probably want to move here. And it transpired so, and they moved here in the beginning of 1982 permanently. I have been I suppose you'd call me a continuous visitor to Dallas, knowing a lot of people and coming and going. And eventually in 1991 I got married, and we had a family, and towards the end of towards 2000 we got our immigration papers to come to the United States, which we did in 2001, and we've lived here since then. Our two boys, one of the main motivating factors that brought us was that I had seen the Akiba Yavna school system, and it was not dissimilar to the one which they were at in Johannesburg. And it was a big motivator to bring them here to continue with their education.
Okay, I'm going to take you back for just a minute. What can you share about your life, your early life in South Africa, and something memorable that you can remember from your early life in South Africa?
Well, South Africa was looking back at it, was a very privileged lifestyle we had. And I had probably in many ways a very fortunate existence. My family was in agriculture, but we also had a house in the big city, and I was able to go to school there and escape from that area and be weekends and holidays out on the farm, which was away from all that. I had a brother who was cerebral palsied, and this took up a lot of effort and a lot of time, and it was sort of a controlling factor in our lives. And when he could no longer attend school or anything, and there was an interim period when my parents were busy trying to make arrangements for him to have somewhere to go to as he got older, that we moved away that we sold up and moved back onto the farm. And I lived there and went to school from the farm every day, which was a great experience as far as I was concerned. And I grew to love it, and eventually I returned there and took over the family business, which I closed down before moving to the United States.
Those family members that did not come here or were not thinking about coming here, what do you think they were thinking about your move, the fact that you wanted to leave and were moving here?
No, there was actually the immediate family. There was nobody who was against us moving. It was my late mother came with us and lived here for nearly 10 years, and she had been, she came with us, and my father had passed away prior to that, and my in-laws, my mother-in-law had moved ahead of us to California to be with her other two sons, my two brothers-in-law, and my father-in-law was remaining in Cape Town in South Africa, where he still is, and he was in favor of us moving, particularly for the future for our kids.
Have you been able to, or were you able to, influence other people to move besides family members?
I'm not sure whether we encouraged people to come, but actively, and I think it had got to the level in South Africa particularly where people would call up the US consulate and say, how can I get into America? And they gave them sort of contradictory instructions, and it scared people off. And I think that a lot of people went to other places. Those who were toying with the idea went to other places because they could get access. And United States access is there, but you've got to go and ask for it. You've got to dig for it yourself. It doesn't come to you.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's very... If you had not chosen here, Dallas, would there have been any other cities that you could think of in the States that you would have also preferred or gone to?
Not really. We did look at California.
That's it.
We look at because Kevy.
Okay.
Sorry. Anyway, we did look at California. We toyed with the idea, but it was at the time I sort of focused on Dallas and decided I was coming to Texas.
Good move. What types of adjustment issues do you remember having when you came here?
Well, there are lots of cultural differences, which was the big thing, and we dealt with a culture. It's largely, there's no, how do you explain it? There's no real guidance. You've just got to feel your way, and it takes some time. And we were used to a certain lifestyle. We'd grown up, all of us had grown up with this lifestyle, and this lifestyle was, as I said in the beginning, very privileged. And because of that, I think in some ways it made it more difficult to come here. But we did, and we adjusted to a large degree.
And the cost of living and the actual settling in, did you find it to be comparable or higher or lower?
It was a little bit lower than what we'd experienced. Mm-hmm. The cost of living was probably higher because it was different. Although that circumstances from my observations going back to South Africa now seems to have flipped.
Right. Can you think of anything specific that stands out as being very different from what you were used to for you and your family? Well, actually, you didn't have your children yet, right? Your son. So it would be just you and your wife, I guess. Anything
when we came, the boys were born in South Africa.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What happened? We came here. The adjustment was difficult in many ways because we had we had fixed ideas of what we were coming to, rather than allowing things to happen. We wanted them to move in the direction we wanted to see them, and it didn't work out like that. We had to adapt to it.
Okay. What kind of work did you first do when you came here, or what were you looking for?
I was looking for employment initially, and then eventually I wound up doing things, going in and trying to do various things for myself. One was business consulting, and then eventually winding up to doing what I do now and trading the financial markets.
Oh. Were you doing something similar to that in South Africa or no?
No, that was a sideline in South Africa.
What were you doing there?
And I was in agriculture.
Oh, that's right. You had your family farm. Okay. All right. So did anyone in well, I should say your sons did, but what do you think the college experience was like, or are they in college yet?
They are in college.
Okay. For them here versus what they might have experienced.
Oh, it's very different. There's also there a big difference, and I hesitate to say culture because the approach is different. Here, for example, in South Africa, many of us felt that you went to college and the tendency was to weed out a lot of people in their freshman year. Whereas here, many of the professors will work with you and encourage you to get through that freshman year.
Where are they going to college?
Jonathan, the elder one, is in Drexel University in Philadelphia, and Kevin, the younger one, is at UT in Austin.
Oh, very good. That's where I went. Good school. How do you feel the community treated you as far as welcoming you into it as a new immigrant?
Initially it was quite welcoming, and then sort of one found we were left to our own devices.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your introduction into the Dallas Jewish community here.
Okay.
Okay. So, the Dallas Jewish community. How did you think it was? How did you find it when you first came? And if you would, compare it a little bit to your experiences in South Africa Jewish community where you were involved.
All right. I think the first thing to note, we happen to be one of the people who comes from what is probably the top Orthodox community outside outside of Israel in the whole of the diaspora in Johannesburg, which was Glen Hazel, and it carried you. We're well established there. People were actually stunned that we were prepared to move away, but I knew that we had to do, and so we wound up here in Dallas. We then went and joined. We looked at up north at Ohev Shalom, and I had a vested interest in Ohev Shalom because in 1986, when Rabbi Roden started it, I happened to be in Dallas for an extended period and helped him with the starting of that congregation. But when we came, we looked around and we decided that Sharei Tefillah would be a better choice for our kids, particularly going to a kibbutz school, the two being linked. And we came from that perspective. We settled to a large degree with the Jewish community. I suppose we have our place. We do certain things, and as with anything, I think you find your level in any group of people, and that's where you seem to remain.
Very good.
And we go from there.
Are you involved in anything else specifically in the Jewish community besides congregation?
Myself, not at this time.
Okay. What South African Jewish traditions would you say that your family has maintained? Food, holidays, or anything, customs, anything else like that?
Almost all of them.
Okay.
We both came from very strong traditional homes, and so we've just continued our observance strictly. We've made some adjustments because when you're in a community, you need to be part of that community, and the attempt has been to make adjustments to meet those needs.
Very good. How important was Israel to you growing up in South Africa?
Israel, we come from a very strong Zionistic background, extremely strong. It was an option when we left South Africa, when we were toying with the idea originally of leaving South Africa. Israel was definitely an option. I felt that...
Wait. What traditions would you say, this might be a tough one, do you see your children wanting to continue from their, well, they were babies when they left, but as far as you passing it down to them, that you would say would be specifically South African versus things in Dallas? Can you see them continuing in?
Some things they will definitely continue afterwards, particularly, they question them, but which is correct in a way, because it can only reinforce their feelings, and they see what we've done. They've grown up with it, so there's not a question of they received the traditions here, and they heard from an educational point of view for where they went to school.
Okay.
So they actually, in many ways, on a formalized basis, got more education than I did. Because I learnt at home, and that was what it is. I went to public school, to what you'd call public school, and was what the observance that I learnt was what we taught. We used to go to Hebrew school in the afternoons or in the mornings early, depending on what level, and but that was basically to learn Hebrew. And religious observance we learnt at home and in home from the family. Okay.
I know you and I talked about a little bit about some of the people that were here that you knew or relatives that you knew. Tell me a little bit about, you were telling me a story about Joan Grimond and also about your sister being here, Leslie.
Okay, well, Joan Grimond went to, Joan's family and my family were friends in South Africa, and the two of us went to kindergarten together. And we went up through elementary school, and we remained basically in contact from then. My sister Leslie got married, and her husband and herself decided in, I think it was 1980, they were going to come to the United States, and they were going to go to St. Louis, Missouri, where they arrived in a very good time to go in January, and it was freezing cold and miserable, and they hated it. And I said to them on the telephone, I said, well, go down to Dallas and you'll have a look, you'll like Dallas. Well, they did, and they subsequently, after about 3 months, came back to South Africa, and then in January 82, between January and April 82, they came back to live in Dallas permanently, which meant that after that I was a regular visitor to Dallas, yes, if for no other reason but to see my sister and her daughters.
Good. I know quite a bit of your family has already moved, but is there still anybody that you can think of that's left in South Africa, family or friends, that you wish they would just pick up and move here, or that haven't done so?
Well, there are people who I wish would pick up and move, full stop. I think that come to Dallas, I don't know, people are not often prepared to come and take a look, which I feel is the only way to understand it, is to actually come and stay for 4 or 5 days, not for 2 days. Hi, how are you? Let's have dinner. Bye. And which is what a lot of people tend to do.
If anything, is there anything that you miss about your life in South Africa, looking back now?
There are lots of things. There's lots of I think we miss a lot of the people we was with and grew up with, and I'll say it again, it was a privileged upbringing we had, and it's the misfortune is that now, whereas when I was in my teens, cousins would have a bar mitzvah or a wedding or some such thing, we'd be several hundred direct relations there, and now everybody's scattered all over the world. To get 40 of us together seems to be a huge number.
Have you returned to visit?
Yes.
Since? And what would you say, what was it like for you? Describe your feelings of seeing and being back in South Africa again.
I don't know, indifferent, sort of being an observer. The only thing that really was the draw was the people, the friends, going back and being with friends and things like that. And of course we miss some landmark things like going out on what you people call safari and going to see the nature and be part of nature. It's different. It's a very different view than from what most people here have of it.
And when you think about citizenship, do you consider yourself an American yet? And do you have your U.S. citizenship?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And what does it mean to you, just briefly?
To be citizen, well, it means that that I have a commitment to the country where I live, and that will do what needs to be done to try and make it better for myself and for everybody around me.
Okay. And I just want to wrap up with this. Think about this for just a minute. If in fact you're glad that you came here, tell us why.
I'm glad that I came here in the respect that I wanted my kids to have the freedom and the ability to go forward and hope that they could achieve a better life than that. And my view of South Africa is a bit that it's in many ways in turmoil, and it hasn't found a new direction, and as such, I didn't want them subject to that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That's wonderful. All right.